Welcome to the Heart Factory. So today's video is about mucormycosis, or basically we are talking to Dr. Soumya Tripathi. She is our
oral and maxillofacial surgery. She is the consultant dealing with all these areas of interest.
And today I thought to ask her what's her experience in the COVID era. The first question would be, what are the oral symptoms in this COVID era? Anything in particular? Loose tooth, ulcers, candida, etc.
Due to the viral disease per se,
in COVID,
sometimes they may have a only presentation as an oral ulcer or generalized mucositis we call. So it is like any other systemic disease or any other viral infection. They may present as like burning of the mouth, or otherwise we call it burning mouth syndrome, and loss of taste, altered taste. They may have like aphthous ulcers, and if they came to me with a complaint of ulcer or generalized like mucositis or burning sensation in the mouth, and when they went back after 3-4 days, they were diagnosed as COVID. It used to happen earlier when we were all learning about the disease, and we could not think that this also can be a presentation of COVID.
So what basically Dr. Saab is trying to say is, aphthous ulcers, patient coming with aphthous ulcers later on went on to become to be proved as COVID positive. That was during the learning phase. Yeah. Of course, now the symptoms has changed. Do they still come with aphthous ulcers, or do you get suspicious if someone comes?
Of late, recently I have not had, but last year it happened. Like, not aphthous ulcer, only 1 or 2 cases. Mostly they will come as a mucositis, generalized mucosal burning sensation, or they will say even like not very spicy food feels like spicy, or they are not able to take. We see this in any other viral infections as well.
What is your experience with mucormycosis before the COVID era? What I meant to say is, when you were a student, when you were practicing, before Corona came into existence.
So first thing is number of cases. So even in an institutional setup, like in an academic institute where we get lot like high volume center, we used to never get these many number of mucor cases. One thing. So in my practice, in a year, I would have seen not more than 3 cases. The second thing is the age. Earlier, I have always seen mucor cases affecting elderly, otherwise debilitating diseases affected, or like we all know, uncontrolled diabetes, almost in decay stage, or they were CKD patients, not very well nourished. Basically, the entire immune system is affected in one or the other way, or patients on cancer chemotherapy. If suppose I have to take an example of a young patient. So it is not easy to get mucor, I mean to say.
So person with good immunity is highly unlikely to get mucor, number fungal, one. Yeah. Unless you have immunodeficiency, it's very unlikely for you to get mucormycosis. Yes, that is the basic understanding.
Yes.
Now, why the sudden interest and increase in mucor?
Yeah, that we all are wondering. So,
what are the causes you may list? Probable causes.
Yeah. We have been blaming steroids, or whether the early use, high dosage, long duration, all reasons for steroids, or other immunomodulating drugs which are being used for the management of COVID, like tocilizumab to say so, or antivirals, or hyperglycemic state, uncontrolled, low pH due to inflammation, and other environmental factors, like we have been seeing, like people have been discussing the kind of care in the ward, etc. Next is if we can blame oxygen with humidifier, without humidifier, whether industrial O2. So there are so many reasons. I am not saying they are not the contributing, but there has to be one key factor. The basics of the fungal infection, and particularly zygomycetes, the mucor group, they need iron to thrive.
Iron is important for them.
Iron is important. It is the key element for any microorganism particularly, but among fungus, especially mucor. It doesn't apply much to Candida or Aspergillosis, but especially mucor, it needs free iron to thrive. Adequate or abundance of iron available. We all know mucor is ubiquitous. It is there everywhere, whether it is coming through O2 lines or if it is there in the ward. But for it to become a microorganism or a pathogen to cause a disease of this magnitude, there has to be some problem with the host. There are other conditions. For example, to quote, there is something called hemochromatosis, and we all know we use iron chelating agent desferoxamine, and what happens is when you use desferoxamine, abundance of iron is available, and that is also one condition. One point of time, lot of cases were getting affected with mucormycosis. That is why they came up with other chelating agents.
Abundance of iron probably would be the
abundance
cause.
of iron available, and inflammatory state itself
Can cause
gives an acidic environment already, and the altered host immunity, where you have neutrophils are affected, compromised immunity by the virus pathogenesis itself, like I said. And then on top, if you are giving steroids and long duration, high dosage, and poor nutrition, not being taken care, hygiene, and O2. When O2 we know, whether industrial or medical quality, it is a corrosive agent. And if it causes any breach in the mucosa, it is breaking a very important barrier for any organism to invade very easily. So everything together, put together, can be a very conducive milieu for the fungus to grow.
So the logic here is, what we gather from people talking is, with regards to mucormycosis in the post-COVID era, is there's a lot of blame for steroids, but patients are on steroids for generations. Post-transplant patients are on steroids, patients with autoimmune problems are on steroids, patients with COPD on steroids. So this mucor was never a problem in them. Then the other blame was on high flow oxygen. So when you give high flow oxygen, probably the cilia are disturbed or the nasal mucosa is disturbed. And if it's a dry oxygen or a humidified oxygen, depending on the humidifier, if that is contaminated, you are likely to get mucor. So a lot of theories are there, etc. But there is a sudden surge of mucor in post. And as Dr. Soumya was saying, the number of cases of mucor with regards to the total number of COVID
is very less, actually.
So what is that percentage? It is still very less.
Yeah, so if I'm not wrong, the number of COVID cases are some 1.2 crore and notified mucor cases are somewhere 97,000 if not.
Probably 1 lakh.
Yeah, probably 1 lakh. So it is percentage wise, it is very, very less.
So what Dr. Soumya is driving the point here is, based on her research of the literature, is that high iron levels give a good milieu for the fungus to grow, number one. So leaving aside the discussion that's going on, like what is the type of oxygen, whether industrial or medical, how pure the oxygen is, whether the patient is on high dose steroids or not. Patients who are not admitted, patients who have not had oxygen therapy have also had, and not on steroids have also had mucor. So probably high iron in the body may be a driving force for mucormycosis. To start, And she gave an example that hemochromatosis, like a disease which is treated with desferoxamine, and it gives high iron. Patients who were treated with this particular medicine had higher incidence of mucormycosis. So what Dr. Soumya has to say is, all patients with mucor in the past, if possible, if we can manage to see the inflammatory markers and ferritin, probably we can be able to drive home a point. You saw, say, mucor was 3 to 4 cases before COVID. Now there's all of a sudden there's so many cases coming. Why is the change in virulence?
Yeah, that's what I said, that the change in virulence, we have to see nature of the disease caused by the virus itself, the virus per se.
COVID per se.
Yeah, how it is altering the host immunity. Steroids have to be given, they are life-saving drug for this disease. Oxygen to be given, whether it is industrial or medical, or they are life-saving at that point of time. What is happening? Like people refuse to take steroids because they are more afraid of mucor now.
Then corona.
Yeah.
Any other problems of the oral cavity apart from mucor invading the palate?
How this mucor affects the bone, especially if we talk about craniofacial skeleton, it affects the maxilla mostly. So this fungus has a great affinity for vessels. So there is something called angioinvasion. Somehow it enters the vessel, and the hyphae, they form like a plug, and what we call is fungal embolism. It goes and plugs the vessel, and then all these structures which are supplied by that vessel, they go for avascular necrosis, ischemia or avascular necrosis. It is called fungal osteomyelitis. So to start with, it is fungal osteomyelitis, and once the vascularity is completely blocked, it will end up in avascular necrosis. What will be their presentation as clinical presentation? They will come with a complaint of generalized pain in all the teeth. But if you see clinically, you may not find an odontogenic foci of infection, like no caries or no periodontitis or gingivitis. But they will complain generalized and jaw pain and paresthesia in the distribution of infraorbital nerve, or stuffy nose or nasal discharge. Next thing we do is we go for scans, CT scan or if MRI. Early osteomyelitic changes will not be detected in CT scan. What you will see is obliterated sinuses. Early features, you may not get anything radiologically, but surgically if you explore, you will see, if you open the flap, you will see yellow bone. It will not bleed. Even if you drill, it will not bleed. But if you miss that early stage of disease, later on when they come, you may see a varied range of presentation in the form of an ulcer in the palate, or like a dry gangrenous black color patch in the palate, or if it is superadded bacterial infection, multiple draining sinuses, or wet gangrene like picture. If it has come to that stage, most of the time we may have to do partial or total maxillectomy. We may not get a very classic picture of gingivitis, periodontitis, or any ulcers or any draining sinuses. But if we probe, there will not be any bleeding. Or if we drill the bone, there will not be any bleeding.
So you will exercise as much as possible.
Yeah.
It is a disfiguring surgery, no?
No, not always. If early detected, we have to just raise intraoral. Most of the time, if it is just the palate, the procedure is intraoral. And we raise the palatal flap. We something called sequestrectomy. So whatever is the dead bone you remove to the limit where you get fresh bleeding. And it is very important to remove that dead bone, because whatever systemic anti-fungal drugs you are giving, it is not going to reach to the bone which is dead, because there is no vascularity. And it that area acts as a hub for fungus if you cannot reach, if the antifungals cannot reach there. So we definitely have to clear it, debride it surgically.
Do you have any advice with regards to hygiene of the oral cavity?
So mucor, I don't, hygiene we have to maintain. Other than mucor, the other common oral fungal disease is candida. So that again has direct correlation with the compromised immune system, high sugar level, poor oral hygiene. But that presentation is entirely different. It is like white color patch on the tongue and the buccal mucosa, oral mucosa, which is scrapable. If you remove it with a tongue blade or a tongue cleaner, you may get petty bleeding, small bleeders, and that also oral fungal mouthwashes are available, and basically good oral hygiene.
But that is not invasive.
In very seriously infected patient, it can become invasive as well. But most of the time,
compared
majority
to this mucor, it is a bit.
It is.
So you will get both types of fungal infection. Candida we see very often, especially when, as Dr. Soumya said, hygiene is no good. But especially people with immunosuppression, uncontrolled diabetes, so-called oral thrush, you can get candida in any part of the body. But it is not taken as seriously as this particular thing, which is really driving the medical world to a frenzy.
I would also like to put a word to all the dental clinics. So if they come across a patient who just comes with a complaint of tooth pain, please do not go and start straight away the conventional treatment like we are taught. We have to rule out if it is not mucormycosis. If you do not see clear-cut odontogenic foci, do not go and do RCT. Do not go, and if you have just without any reason one single isolated tooth, you find mobility or compressibility, do not go and plan straight away extraction of the teeth.
Always look for maxilla.
Always keep, especially during this time, have high suspicion index for mucormycosis. Rule out. If needed, send for ENT consultation, let them do endoscopy, and then only go ahead with other regular dental treatment if there is no clear odontogenic foci of infections.
So that was actually, this is a bit of an overlap with the ENT surgeon which we talked a few minutes ago. It was kind enough of Dr. Soumya to shed some light, especially we are very glad that iron may be one of the reasons. I'm not sure. I also go and do the research, Dr. Soumya, number one. As usual, if you have any comments or if you have any other thoughts that is different from what we just spoke, please leave them in the comment section. So if you like this video, click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to ring the bell just to be notified of our next video in time. Please keep watching this space for more videos that will be more educational and of medical in origin. Thanks for watching, and I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Soumya as well.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.